It's exciting to see so many people coming in. We're looking forward to spending a little time with everybody. Let us know as you come in where you're calling in from.
Yeah, Michael, where are you calling in from?
So I've had the kind of fantastic opportunity to do a little traveling over the past week, kind of 10 days or so. So I am in Spain right now. I'm in Girona, Spain. If there's any Game of Thrones fans out there, I'm actually in the city that was most of the setting for season 6. So that's kind of cool. I'm just like a block away from the big cathedral that was in a bunch of scenes and some of the bridges and things like that where some of the chase scenes took place. So it's kind of fun.
Nice, very good.
Hey.
I'm coming to you from my home in Denver, Colorado, and not quite as cool as Spain, but thank everybody for joining us today. We're going to be sharing some very insightful findings from our T3 Fusion rankings, and Michael will open up, and I'll probably give the genesis of what
Yeah.
that was, the history. It's near and dear to my heart, so very good.
Yeah, I'll get kind of like started with a little bit of prologue, then I'll kick it over to Travis. There's going to be a companion article that's going to go along with this that's going to actually appear in the tech guide. So I hope everybody kind of like stay tuned for even more insights on this. This was a piece of research that Travis and I were really excited to do. And when I did the first initial draft of this article, I was working with Paul Hagee, our senior editor, and he's like, it's kind of boring. And I said, man, that's kind of hard to hear. I will be honest with everybody. He's like, you know what? We've all heard this stuff before. And I said, it's true. I said, but I think everybody needs to hear it again. So I'm excited to kind of share some of this with this group because I think while all these things are things we've heard before, we actually have data this time that kind of proves that the industry is either leaning into some of these things or not leaning into some things they should. So I'm excited with Travis to kind of share some of those insights. So Travis, why don't you tell us kind of a little bit about the history of these awards because you're the one that kind of got them rolling way back when.
Yeah, so about 10 years ago, back when I was at Real Trends, obviously, I spent 6 years there, and I really wanted to create something that helped document the best performing websites in real estate. My vision all along was to include analytics, and I was tracking in my online performance study the impact of quality and quantity from an analytics perspective, so art and science. And I never quite got around to blending the performance side of the equation. While I had access to hundreds of brokerages' websites, it took on a different life. And so I always wanted to bring that back. And when the opportunity arose here at T360, and you came to me and said, boy, there's an opening in the kind of website rankings and performance space. We jumped on it and we said, all right, now, as we do in the T3 way, I've learned, just like you did with your back and forth with Paul, we're very scrutinous on each other and our work product. And we said, okay, if we're going to do this, we are going to do it right. And so luckily we had teamed up with a partner in T3 Benchmetrics, an internal partner that we have to help analyze performance and benchmark. We're going to talk about them a little bit more in a bit. But we now have the ability to benchmark real estate websites on a blend of art and science. So performance, design, usability. I know you'll go through the main categories. So if you want to share your screen, why don't you take us through the main categories? But I'm fired up about this. Our whole team analyzed all these websites, put a lot of work in. So kudos to the T3 technology team. And take it away, Michael.
Yeah, so let me share my screen here with everybody. As Travis is saying, when we were imagining the awards, we wanted it to be a whole lot more than aesthetics, which are obviously easy. It's easy to go look at a website and kind of say, yeah, this website looks pretty and, I know where the buttons are and stuff like that. But we really wanted to make sure that we were blending a lot of quantitative data in with the awards. And so what we decided to do it in the most objective way possible was to really lean into some of the tools that are available via Google, particularly the Lighthouse reports. So we were able to really dig in on kind of performance and usability and engagement. And what makes these really different though, is that then we have this whole a reservoir of data from all the information we were gathering from Benchmetrics. So we were able to combine all that and kind of really look at what was kind of making the best websites hum. And so I think that's what we're going to share with you today. These are just going to be like I said, a little bit of a tease of kind of like what we've got coming, and also have you pay attention to the article. But stay tuned, because you are going to walk away with some very specific things that you can go back to your internal team or maybe your website vendor and kind of check on some things and kind of see how you kind of would have stacked up if we had done the scoring. So one of the things I'm really proud of was it took quite a bit. As Travis mentioned, this was absolutely a team effort and actually involved 4 different organizations. Part of what Travis and I wanted was this to be as unbiased as possible. And so what we'd said is we elicited the help of a couple of other partners, one being Maxa Designs, ListTrack, and LiveBy, NC360, to kind of do this analysis. So no one organization could kind of put their finger on the scale and kind of make the kind of the rankings lean towards one of their favorites. So we had a part in that. So we had the 28 factors. And as they mentioned, they kind of spanned those 3 kind of broad categories that Travis mentioned earlier. And what they kind of cooked down to when we sat back was 5 insights that we thought were really important to kind of highlight. We're going to have a future webinar on the 5th one, so stay tuned. You're going to see 4 of these today. But let's dig in. So Travis, this was one of the kind of most fun ones we had, which was kind of when we started, because we started with almost 500 websites, and we ran 500 websites through Google's Lighthouse, which kind of looks at the desktop and remote version. And what were some of the things we found, Travis? I mean, we all took a big chunk of those 500 and did them.
Well, the first one that jumps out at me was like this, oh crap moment where I put some of these in and there was some super simple, like didn't even have search or something like that. But because they were so fundamentally simple, they were fast, they were, like optimized for Google and stuff like that. They elevated into the rankings, but their performance wasn't as good because they were too simple, right? And so there was this delicate balance where it's like, yes, simple is better. So what we're trying to say is don't go rip out your search, don't go rip out all the videos on your website and stuff, but be conscious of what you're doing with those. Are they necessary? Are they slowing down your site? Are they optimized for Google search? All of these things do need to be factored in. And so while site speed, of course, is a very critical factor in search engine rankings, we did see that ultimately simplicity and beautiful design outweighed all of this feature functionality, maybe over featuring the website. It's probably like, Michael, you and I mountain biking. You can over feature a bike and all of a sudden it's not working as simple as it could be. So that was probably one of my biggest takeaways. I was kind of nervous when we pulled the top maybe 100 or so websites, and I said, well, some of these sites that are just like almost too simple, maybe even poor looking, how are they going to perform? And the inverse was true on performance and engagement if they were too simple too. So there was this delicate blend in real estate websites.
Yeah, and I think the thing that we all walked away was just to be very deliberate with your choices when you're building your website. Don't do something because everybody else does it. And the other thing I would say, and some of our website vendors may not like this, but I'll say it, and I just mean this in the most collegial, respectful way possible. Don't just take their word for it, right? Kind of like if a vendor says, hey, we've got this handled, this is the best way to work. If you see something that's not quite right, use some things like Lighthouse or Benchmetrics to kind of say, hey, let's look at this. A good example of this is plugins, right? Lots of website vendors like to put various plugins on the pages to kind of track and do these various things that they want to do, and some automations and stuff like that. And some of those can be really good, but just make sure that those aren't adversely impacting your site speed. I know when I worked at the brokerage, I had to work with our website developer all the time to figure out how much script and how much we could put on there, and really kind of balance the impact. So just keep that in mind as you think about that. The other thing is high resolution images and video, right? So just like Travis said, just make sure that you're not overdoing it. You're using them where you need to use them to gain somebody's attention, to really differentiate your brand. but one, make sure they're optimized well. And there's all sorts of tools and different kind of webinars about how you can kind of make that sure that that goes well. But just make sure you're taking that step. So one of the next insights that we had after doing this was that the industry continues to design websites for desktop environment first. And Travis and I both, and some other members of the technology team, we work actively with some of our brokerage clients when they're building new websites. So we're actually in meetings with the website vendors and with the brokerages. And I cannot think of a time when a website vendor did like the initial kind of reveal of the site and started off with mobile. Yet we know for almost 10 years, mobile traffic mobile devices have been the predominant source of traffic compared to desktop. And so we continue to kind of like design first for desktop, even though we all know that it should be mobile first. So this was a kind of a fun one for me to kind of think back. And as we work with some of our website vendor clients to say, hey guys, maybe when you're presenting these, let's present them from the kind of mobile aspect first. I don't know, Travis, do you want to unpack any of these that we kind of picked out?
It's a small screen. You have a lot less real estate, so making it impactful is challenging. But you should be up for the task. We're up for the task, and I want your web vendors or partners to be up for the task too. So definitely start to flip the script here and start to be mindful. Look at mobile first. And it's just a bunch of little things. It is, loading images, it's alt tags, it's all these little things that all add up. And they kind of do tie into, I think, our fifth trend as well. But we do need to lean on more quicker, richer GPS experiences, stuff like that. So it's almost like we got a little ahead of ourselves in the industry when there was this craze back in the day when I think it was Smarter Agent, HomeSpotter, and many of these other mobile tools. We kind of got out there and we just needed to get an app out there, but we probably did our industry a little bit of a disservice because we weren't focusing on these experiences. It was like, how vanilla ice cream can we get these apps and mobile websites out there? And that mentality has hung with us for now several years, and we're still kind of fighting that mentality in the industry. So when you do decide to make a change, design mobile first, and then back into the desktop, that is our words of advice here from T360.
Yeah, and think about the different functionality you have on a mobile device. It's a different experience. People are at a different place. There's research out there that suggests that a lot of the best conversions that come, so if you're very focused on leads and lead conversion, your best leads are probably coming from a mobile device. So really think about knowing that. What types of information does a consumer want that's much deeper in the funnel, right? So think about those kind of things. So just how the experience is different, how you can lean into kind of location services and stuff like that to really enhance the experience for the user. So that's kind of one of those things that I would just kind of pay attention to. And there's all different ways to do it. And I think that's one of the ways that kind of the lessons we learned is a lot of these websites, as Travis said, are very vanilla. They start to feel like you've seen one, you've seen them all. But then every once in a while you uncover one that somebody that's doing something a little bit different. And as an example, with the GPS information, if you're kind of partnering with any local businesses, maybe you ping the user and say, hey, here's one of my favorite places to grab a coffee while you're out shopping for a house. Check this out, right? Because you know where they are and you've got that, hopefully you've got that neighborhood information living on your website. So just geotagging and doing some fun stuff with the phone can be a great way to enhance that experience.
Oh, go ahead. I guess my comment ties into this trend. Why don't you share this trend? Then I'm going to tie the last two trends together because I think there's something more to the story here.
Yeah, so this one is like a no duh, right? Like this one right here is like a positive correlation exists between engagement time and rate. And when I say a positive correlation, I mean statistically, there was a very strong relationship between how long somebody spends on the site and their conversion rate, right? Them taking some action. And one of the things that I think when we do our work with brokerages is they're very focused on, I want somebody to tell me they want to go see 123 Main Street right now. And that being the conversion that everybody's optimizing for. But there is a whole host of kind of what we call micro conversions that can be leading up to that kind of filling out the platinum form, as I like to call it. It can be watching a video. It can be using a mortgage calculator. It could be downloading a neighborhood report. There's all sorts of signals that your users can be giving you along the way that can be almost as valuable as them filling out that location form. Obviously, that's the one we all want. That's the one we want to get them to, but there's lots of things in between. So just keep that in mind, that the longer you keep them on the site, the more likely they are to fill out a form or do some type of micro conversion and make themselves known. It's kind of like listing appointments, right? Whenever you've been taught, if you came up in the industry kind of as an agent, you know that one of the things you get taught is that you're just trying to get the appointment. You're not trying to get the listing. Think that same way with your website. We're just trying to collect their contact information. I just want to know who they are so I can begin to communicate with them. That's the goal. So Travis, take it away.
Yeah, and so tying into the last trend too, I think 98% of real estate brokerages, and of course this would hold true for agents too, give very little thought to this notion of a buyer's journey, or even a seller's journey, if you will. And so the seller's journey or the buyer's journey is not, like you said, how do we get them to go see 123 Main Street? It's all of the micro conversions that happen along the way that build trust, maybe build authority with the consumer, build a relationship with them. And now under kind of the new age real estate with the buyer broker compensation lawsuits and everything that's happening, we have even more incentive to sit down and document our buyer journey. And that buyer journey is going to have all kinds of little things, little triggers that we don't pay attention to in real estate. And so if you haven't done this, here's a fun exercise that Michael and I love to do. It is, think about imagining your website without any listings present. So if you were to actually remove your listings, what would your real estate website accomplish and how would you engage the consumer? Take that exercise back to your technology teams, to your leadership teams. Actually do that. It's a very fruitful exercise because what it will do is it will get you thinking about all of the local content, all of the housing market reports, all of these micro conversions that you want the people to interact with so that you can build that trust and authority with them. And so it's kind of like in the dating world, you're kind of going straight to marriage. 98% of you out there in brokerage, and we need to date before we get there. And so that's what we would strongly encourage. And now take that one step further, tie it into our last trend, start on your mobile device. What are those things that are the hair triggers that are going to lead to conversions and collection of information from the consumer in a non-threatening, kind of micro way? So that's the tying these actually the last three trends together.
Yeah, and that's this. It's funny how these kind of build. I hadn't thought about it that way, but they really build on one another. And this last bullet point that we have on the screen here, this is one that we see all the time, right? And this is one thing that a few of the vendors out there, LiveBuy's got this, Local God Logic has something similar now, is this downloadable report. Create something that people want to give you their contact information for, they're not ready to see a property yet, but something that they want. Another really a good vendor that can help you with this if they're in your market is Lolo, right? You could have the Lolo of the month offer of the month available on your website that people can put their email in and download that, right? Get access to that offer for a very specific merchant in a very specific community. It's all local and independent. And it can be a great way to collect information that you can then continue to market to afterwards. And here's one that's really near and dear to Travis's and I's heart. And it's because the industry tends to forget things, right? And they're very focused on the buyer compensation lawsuits right now. But just like about 9 months ago, a year ago, there was a whole lot of brokerages involved in another lawsuit that was all in the news. And that had to do with ADA and accessibility of websites and them not being as accessible as they should be. I will say that this is an area that the industry has a lot to learn, and there's a spectrum. So if you talk to your website vendor and they say they're compliant, yes, they probably are. However, there's a spectrum of compliance, right? So it's not a yes or a no. This isn't a black and white thing. And so you should always be striving to be as accessible as possible. So this is an area that if you haven't spent time and your vendor's not taking care of this for you, you could be opening yourself up to another type of lawsuit. So make sure that you kind of keep this one on your marks. Travis always likes to talk about this one. And what's really neat is that there's some technology coming down the pike right now that helps us all kind of be even more accessible. I don't know if you want to jump into one of these, maybe like the kind of talking about just kind of voice activation and things like that, Travis.
Yeah, this has bigger implications. So ADA compliance isn't just about, as you said, on the spectrum. And I'll tell a story through the data. As we were looking at the 500 brokerage websites that we analyzed, it was clear to us that there was this kind of trigger point. And so if this is the spectrum here, this end is they're really good. They're probably performing. They've maybe checked all these boxes and more. And then this end is they've done very little. Most of the 500 websites were on the poor end. So most of them. Now, what we did see was the top performers, the ones that passed our sniff test with Google Lighthouse tools, they did exceed and skewed a little bit more towards the performing end. But that was only 15-20% of our overall submission base for the T3 Fusion website rankings. And so what we're trying to say there is there's about 425 websites that submitted, or 400, that weren't really very good on ADA compliant. They were marginal at best. They were barely making ends meet on ADA compliance. And so the majority of our industry would probably follow that same flow, where I bet 75% of our industry, or 80%, are underperforming when it comes to ADA compliance. So it is a potential next impact zone for our industry. If we were writing a danger report right now for the industry, which we did in the past, we would say, hey, look, this is one of those danger areas that we need to be mindful of. And so there are some small things here that they're not small, they're big, but they need to be weaved into the fabric of how you even load blog articles, to how you load content, to how you're interacting with your content management system. All of those things need to be accounted for, from images to videos to audio and stuff like that. And the bigger implication, as Michael was alluding to, is now we've got audio search. We've got search for the visually impaired. We've got all kinds of new technologies. When you weave in Alexa and some of the new technologies, this puts an extra spotlight on this, that if we continue with poor strategies on ADA compliance, we're compounding the problem, because as more and more devices are adaptive for websites in general, we are going to make it more inaccessible for the industry as more devices start to access our content.
Yeah, and this is an area I think where we're going to see a lot of the technology and AI really help. Certainly AI has made it a lot easier to generate captions and things like that. But check out some of the voice search that's out there, whether that's Voice Flip. Those guys over there are doing some really cool things. They're getting ready to reveal some new things. Lundy, right, is another one that does kind of some kind of voice search things. So just keep an eye on those and lean into some of those. All right, so kind of just finishing things up. Travis, are you monitoring the chat there? I think we may have a couple of questions. Are there any questions in there that we haven't?
No, that's me. I'm just putting the links to the
Oh, got it.
companies that you're referencing.
All right. So just kind of moving on. So we just wanted to showcase some of the finalists, right? So if you recall, we had over 500 websites kind of submit to the awards. We narrowed that down to the top 20% per region. There was 4 regions in the US and a region up in Canada for our friends north of the border. And so what Travis and I thought it'd be just kind of fun to point out some of the brokers and website vendors that really kind of did an amazing job of cooperating. And I really want to emphasize that. Travis and I know many of these. We don't know all of them, but we know many of these. And where these websites really shine is when the website vendor and the brokerage work collaboratively together. They do some really cool stuff. So I'll start with this first one, Zone 1, kind of the far west side, kind of luxury presence. And Sun River Premier Real Estate Brokers doing an amazing job out there. Travis has put a link to all of the finalists. I think the semifinalists too are all on that page. So you got the semifinalists and the finalists for all of these. So you can kind of go check those out. I know this was a really fun one to check out how they handled some of the lifestyle. You'll see some good use of video here. So a good example of like you can use video, just be very careful about where you use it, how you use it, and stuff like that. So that was a favorite of mine. Travis,
I'd say, yeah, the takeaway on that one is for you, for those of you that are looking at how can I improve my website, these are gold for you. Number one is these weren't just qualitative. This isn't like, oh, we like that design of Sunriver better. That site performed to get past all of the engagement metrics, the accessibility metrics, the SEO metrics, and it looked good. So now you can go see how are they doing that and benchmark or compare your website to theirs. This one, a Reliance website, Hague Realtors, in the middle of our country, a very clean, very simple website, but very high performing website. And so I love the balance. This one's more on the performance side. And so a good vendor here that's producing on the performance, putting lots of energy into that.
And then good friends up at Union Street Media with Cashers Valley Real Estate. Union Street was one of the stronger performers in the rankings. They had a number of kind of high finishers. They do an amazing job of balancing SEO with design. So that's one of the things I would point out about them. So if you're really kind of looking for that kind of a website, they can be a great partner for you. So check that one out. And then Union Street as a Travis, you want to?
Yeah. So again, Union Street taking home some top prizes here in the rankings. So in zone 4 of the rankings, I like the blend of mobile performance and design of this one. And so they're just doing a great job of being mindful of all of these attributes. And of course, they're well known for their digital marketing side of the business. And so they're able to generate a significant amount of engaging traffic to the websites, one of their namesakes at Union Street.
And one of the big guys, Moxie works here kind of for the Canadian kind of zone with Blue Sky Region Realty doing an amazing job. And I'll tell you, I know a little bit more about this site. They had some help from a local website vendor working with them within the Moxie platform and just really optimizing everything. So even though this was a pretty templated site, they took advantage of all the tools that Moxie makes available to their website consumers and were really able to optimize it and ramp up the performance. So a good example, it does not take a big budget to kind of do some of these things. Some of it's just the blocking and tackling, just the things that we know to do. So back to Paul's comment, some of the stuff's pretty boring, but these guys just did the boring stuff and managed to kind of beat out their competitors. So one of the things that I mentioned early on that's really near and dear to Travis's heart, which is why we did this, is we want to help brokerages do a better job with their spend. You know, the websites tend to be one of the most expensive things in their marketing budgets. And many times you don't know if they're working. You don't know if the dip in traffic, is that because of a change in the Google algorithm, or is that because people just aren't shopping for real estate right now? So there is a way for you to know those answers. And that's through this relationship that we've built with the guys over at Benchmetrics called T3 Benchmetrics. We've built this ability for you to put your website up on this platform, and all the data is aggregated and then anonymized, and you're able to compare yourself against competitors in the industry all over the United States and Canada. And so what makes that so valuable is you can be like, oh, I think I'm doing a great job with my conversions. And then you look at it and you're like, actually, I'm not. Or, man, my website sucks. Actually, I'm outperforming everybody in my region. So if you scan this QR code that's on the screen right now, you'll go into a screen that'll kind of walk you through a super simple process of putting this on your site. And literally by the end tomorrow, you could have this set up and running. And within 30 days, you'll have a whole set of data that you can use to kind of compare yourself. And then if you want to take it a step further, it'll even begin to give you some recommendations on how you can improve your sites using some AI and things like that. So I don't know, Travis, do you want to add anything about these guys over at Benchmetrics?
Yeah, just to be clear, if you scan that QR code, or Chris Riley put the link into T3 Benchmetrics as well, it is a complimentary service. And so we're not charging anything. There are some enhanced metrics and some ability for you to engage us for like a deeper technical audit of sorts. And so, or a conversion audit, I should say, if you really want T360 support to help you build a better website, we're here for that. But my encouragement is go out, at least start benchmarking. If you can't measure it, you can't improve. I think that's came from the ninja selling program where they really focus on that. So start focusing on how you're comparing time over time and against the industry as well. So T3 Benchmetrics will help you do that.
And with that, I think we just wrap it up, Travis. So I don't know if you have anything.
I'll close with one parting thought. We have 500 websites and growing since we launched this T3 Fusion rankings. Now, all 500 of those will be included next year in the second annual T3 Fusion website rankings. We will continue to pull the data to analyze and to launch more insights and information for you guys. So if you do want to be a part of the action, definitely go to Benchmetrics or come to the T3 Tech Summit and spend some time with our team, see some more learnings as we digest more data. We have tons of information coming out at the T3 Tech Summit. Our Tech Summit was built just like the Fusion Rankings from the ground up, and we really, truly wanted to create an event unlike any other. And so everything we do at the T3 Tech Summit is all about creating thought leadership and value and a learning experience, a hands-on experience for you guys. So please come on out to the T3 Tech Summit. Chris Riley put the link in the chat. We'd love to see you all there. Thank you all for joining us on our T360 webinar series. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great talking to everybody.